As the saying goes, we are all frogs in boiling water, slowly cooking to death under this government. And when you read day after day, week after week, for years about corruption in the CFMEU, it becomes the norm. Like the frog in the pot of water that is slowly boiling to death. Because here in Victoria, nothing shocks us anymore. And when your insane fire services levy comes in, when your wildly increased land tax bill gets served, do you know what you're paying for and why you are paying more tax than anywhere else in the country? Let me tell you. You're paying for everything from drug deals and motorcycle gangs operating on CFMEU sites to strippers giving workers lap dances on CFMEU sites. Yes, you are. You are paying for union delegates on up to $300K a year to do no physical work. And if they turn up, they get a spot in an air-conditioned office with access to Foxtel and betting channels. So this explosive report tabled today, a professional hit was planned on the CFMEU administrator Mark Irving after he took over the union. This report claims that Mick Gatto is making tens of millions of dollars from his dealings with the CFMEU, that John Setka surrounded himself with corrupt cronies, that work sites were turned into drug distribution centres for motorcycle gangs, that workers on the Hurstbridge rail line were paid up to $10,000 to work 2 days. So the explosive report was released, and what it also found is that women employed in, as I quote, peggies or cleaners were paid more than $100,000 a year and were recruited from strip clubs. So during the night shift, men on the CFMEU sites would pay cash to have the women perform in sheds on your dime, on taxpayer-funded shifts when they were supposed to be at work. And the report found that Mick Gatto was invited with the Premier Dan Andrews to the CFMEU's grand final breakfast. And the former Premier's office found out about this and said if Mick Gatto was attending, the Premier would not. And when he heard this, John Setka, former CFMEU boss, laughed and said, F the Premier. And Mick Gatto was given a seat at the head table. And you know what? You are paying for all of it. You are paying for cost blowouts for the CFMEU. And this independent report spells it out today. And Nick McKenzie, the most excellent journalist in The Age, found this out last night. And all of what I'm telling you was supposed to be a secret. So he revealed that an Albanese government appointed official, so a federal government official, stripped politically explosive sections from this report. And in doing so, this is the bit that he took out. So the bit that he took out said, Victoria's Labor government turned a blind eye to CFMEU graft and organised crime on infrastructure projects. Now, this is disgraceful. And in any other jurisdiction in this country, these politicians would go before an independent corruption commission and be sacked. New South Wales premiers multiple times have been sacked for less, much less, in fact, for a bottle of wine. So the Albanese government appointed CFMEU administrator Mark Irving, KC, directed the author of this independent report, Jeffrey Watson, to remove his findings. And the bit that he spelt out in black and white was organised union corruption that the state government knew about. And he took that bit out of the report. And the bit that he took out said on conservative estimates, that say up to 30%, but even if he pulls it back to 15%, that is how much extra you paid, you the taxpayer paid, and that's $15 billion. So $15 billion. And what he found is that $15 billion, quote, was poured directly into the hands of criminals and organised crime gangs. And what Jeffrey Watson found was that this equated to $5,000 for every Victorian household. And he said it is a morally indefensible waste of taxpayers' money. And there's another point to this. So first of all, you've got the corruption, you've got the cost blowout, and then you've got the federal and state governments trying to cover it up. And this is offensive to every single Victorian who works so bloody hard in the job that they do, whether it's the nurses, the teachers, the paramedics who are on less than what they are worth. And to know that you can't pay your bills because the government is taxing you into oblivion, when you can't drive on a road because it's full of potholes that the state can't fix because we're broke, when your kid gets a second-rate education without air conditioning on a 40-degree day, All of these things because we don't pay teachers enough and the classrooms are falling down. When you have to wait for an ambulance and there are fewer paramedics on the road because the state can't afford to pay them. When you sit in a hospital in emergency or you are waiting for surgery for years, your $5,000 has gone directly into the pockets of criminals. And the Premier knew about it. The Prime Minister knew about it and the federal government officials tried to cover it up. And I think for that, heads should roll. But I bet they don't. And when the polls come around in November, the opposition should have these ads ready to roll. When you want to pay school fees, but you've had to put $5,000 in taxes of your hard-earned to pay for corrupt union officials to get lap dances and to bet and watch Foxtel in air-conditioned offices, how could any government be re-elected for that?
They're very serious allegations. There's a degree of cynicism within most political parties, particularly the Victorian Labor Party here, that says we can tough this out. People don't care about corruption and allegations of corruption. People don't care if this has been going on because it doesn't touch their lives. I'd love to know from our audience whether they care, and I'll tell you why they should. Our firefighting fleet, the trucks are T-model Fords. They're falling apart. Hospitals, last week, 3 or 4 being delayed because we haven't got the money. Doctors tell me you can't get pillows or blankets in your hospital. We've got a crime crisis. Not enough police. We've got road potholes the size of Sydney Harbour. The place is running down. It's like a business going broke. We are running down, and at the same time we're handing over $15 to $30 billion, not million, $1 billion. I had some interesting figures on billions earlier, to crooks. And the problem, your Premier, Jacinta Allen, held this nonsensical press conference today. So, in 2024, I found out that what was going on and we did all these things. Rubbish. She was minister right through this period, right? So there's only 2 options that I can see. One, she knew what was going on and turned a blind eye to it. That's a big allegation. That's one possibility. The other possibility is she didn't know what was going on. Either way, she's culpable, because she's supposed to protect our money. So if she ignored it, she wasn't protecting our money. And if she didn't know, she bloody well should have. I think it's one of the worst, it's potentially one of the worst I've seen in 50 years following Victorian politics. I think it's
worst.
Horrendous.
Do you mean scandal or revelation or allegation?
I think the potential scandal here, any other era, a government would fall and the Premier would resign.
Yes.
And the Premier should step down now. We don't need Jess Wilson's Royal Commission. I think that's wrong. Take too long. I mean, she calls it in November, another year to report. What we need is to pause the big bill, do a full audit on it and see what money is still going out the door there. And we need a police task force dedicated to finding out what's gone on. There's a bikie leader and a former CFMEU official arrested today, but that's not related to this. We need a police task force dedicated to it, dragging people in, questioning them, and if necessary, charging people. We've got to get to the bottom of it because it is screwing the state. It is the average person. Do they care about corruption? Because it is harming your state seriously.